Welcome back, and we're just picking up where we left off in the last one and just finishing off the rest of Moonlight Spur track. And as you could see in the last video, it's a really good track, great scenery and a nice technical drive, and some pretty good spots along the way too to pull up and have something to eat with some pretty good views. And the old Michelin XZLs, they're just a fantastic tyre. I mean, they're a military tyre first and foremost. They're NATO standard. And the thing about the Michelin tyres is you know, they're the pinnacle of tyre manufacturing. You know, from everything from earth movement to the military to aircraft. They're just a fantastic tyre. They're hugely expensive, but you get what you pay for. Certainly most of the fashion tyres would have had the sidewall out of them by now, doing what I do with them. This looked like a great spot for late lunch. As I come up to it, I was about to start chewing on the steering wheel. I thought I might have made it down to Gaffneys Creek for a bit of lunch, but I didn't get that far. But there was a great view here, just to cook up a bit of a feast and move on. This would be my absolute favourite time for travelling on the tracks, or even out in the outback, just that late afternoon sun, but particularly up in the high country, because you just get that perfect light that comes shining through the trees, and just spectacular. can sort of get an idea why I'm on a first name basis with the drone repairman. I mean, I think it's well worth the risk with the drone. It gets costly, but you know, I get a lot of enjoyment just playing the video back when I'm about to edit and seeing the vehicle from this perspective. You know, and that's sort of saying something because I see the vehicle all the time. But yeah, it's quite enjoyable seeing it from this viewpoint. And I think it gives a really good perspective of the track as well for people that are thinking about coming out for the first time and that haven't drove it. You can definitely see, you know, where it drops away and the surface and all that sort of thing from the drone viewpoint. And the other thing too is from the Discovery salesman viewpoint. You know, you always know how great these things are off-road because you can feel it in the comfort and the way they get over the terrain. They just soak it up. But when you're watching it back on the drone and how difficult some of that terrain is and how jutted and rough it is, and just seeing the old Disco soak it up like it's not there, they're quite a special thing. And I've built and set up some pretty crazy cars for touring Australia and all that stuff over the last decades. But this vehicle here, you know, to have spent, you know, nothing on it, you know, $10,000, you've just got a sentimental attachment to this vehicle like I haven't had for the ones I'd spend crazy money on. This thing just takes everything you can throw at it, and it's over 500,000 kilometres on it. just got down to the bottom. This is Moonlight Creek, the first of the crossings before you get over to the Jamison Wood Point Road. Next crossing's Gaffneys Creek, and we're just about at camp. And not a moment too soon, as the old drone gimbal's starting to overheat from previous crashes. It's starting to shake a bit. And the Jamison Woods Point Road's just over the hill here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to camp somewhere down on the creek here tonight. But I'm going to go around and have a bit of a scavenge around some of the other campsites to see if there's any firewood being left at any of the fireplaces. I've got the saw in the car, but you know, you just can't start ripping into the forest. So just here, I'm out at Lazzarini's Army Track around the Goulburn area, and having a look at a few campsites for some wood. And it's getting pretty close to dark now. It's probably only about 25 minutes or something away from dark. The camera's picking up quite a bit of light, but it is definitely getting dark at this point. It got a little bit of touch and go through here because, you know, obviously there've been the boys ripping it up with 35s and that in some of these deeper holes. But there was very little to winch off down this track, and it was so overgrown you couldn't turn around. So once you were on it, you were committed, or trying to come back in reverse. But yeah, super slippery. When I drove down, this is coming back up it, but when I drove down it to the end of this track here, I had to come under this tree. You'll see up here further that's over the track. It was easier to come down under it the first time than it was to get back under it the second time getting out of there. I did think I was going to be camping underneath it for a little while. Beep. And this is the campsite the next morning. I just camped beside Gaffneys Creek at Knockwood here. It's a nice camp spot, family orientated camp spot. It's got a toilet and all that sort of thing there. But it's right on the Jamison Woods Point Road. The reason I wanted to camp here and get up here early in the morning and head off is I wanted to head down to Woods Point and just have the camera out and a bit of a look on the way down there, get some footage on the way down. There's just a bit of a look at the storage system in the back. And yeah, this was just built out of whatever scrap that was laying around. Nothing spent on it. I got my canvas guy to make up this map bag about 25 years ago or more, just so that I could have, it wasn't opening the maps all the time, but it was in behind the clear plastic and canvas and waterproof, and you could just open it up and see where you were in an instant. Back when smartphones were only owned by geniuses. There's a very rich gold history down this road, that's for sure. And there's still a lot of active gold mines in the area. But huge amounts of gold have been found here, and they reckon that it's the largest gold deposit in the world still, but the only reason it's not had a heap of money spent on it is because it's so expensive to actually get the gold out of there. And for any of those people watching that haven't got a 4-wheel, this is it. You've got to tour this road, because this is just a car road the whole way. You can drive out from Jamison to Warburton, and it's just an absolutely spectacular drive with rivers and creeks flowing down through the valley as you go through. And a lot of it's still very, very untouched, but you can see all the old workings and that, and you see all the stonework here in the fences and in the buildings, and you can just see the history coming through here. But it's very, very untouched, this region still. And this is Gaffneys Creek settlement we're coming through now. and it was very cold overnight. You can see it's still really cold here in the morning with the fog and the frost still around through the bottom of the valleys. And you can see an old gold workings boiler here off to the left. There's a lot of old machinery along the edge of the road, especially out around Woods Point. We're just coming up to A1 settlement now, and its gold mine, I think, was the biggest commercial gold mine in the area, and it went right up until late last century. But I think it's off and running again now. I know they were looking at it a couple of years ago. But yeah, I do think it's actually working again. Yeah, this is the main gate to the A1 mine here, and it looks like it's had a fair bit of road traffic on it, so I think it's working again. And power wasn't run up the valleys and out to Woods Point until the late 1950s. And the power line tracks, even 20 years ago, were quite gnarly, and there was a good drive in them as well. But I see some of them have been upgraded, but I dare say it's still a good drive following the power line down to Woods Point from Jamison. And this is why it's compulsory snow chains during winter along this road, because just here is the highest point and it regularly gets snow during the winter months. And here we go, bloody Kiwis everywhere. I'm just ducking in here because I do think, and looking at all the maps, that just up here is the furthest point you can go to the source of the Goulburn River, where you can cross it just here. So yeah, this is the first crossing on the Goulburn River. And it's crystal clear at this point. And this is following it into Woods Point, along the road into Woods Point. How's that for a prime weekender? It's all set up with solar panels these days. Must have been a rebate. And just to repeat, you don't need a 4B to be out here. There's another one of the great campsites on this track, and that's the Clay Target range there, but there's heaps of places where you can just come here and camp with a car without having a four-wheel drive and take in the breathtaking scenery and the history of this area. And I got fuel from this servo on the left here a few times over the decades, that's for sure, especially when I was running a V8. It's now called Land Cruiser and Patrol Heaven. And in all fairness, the old Discovery 1 V8s have got a bit of a drinking problem themselves. There is a few new buildings up at the top end of town here in Woods Point, but it's still pretty much as it was since the dawn of time. But if you turn off here just to the left, I'll come back down and I'll show you this track down here. This goes all the way out into the bush, but that's where most of the diggings were, out around Woods Point, and there's a heap of history out there and some really good camping spots. I'm not going out there this time, but it's definitely a place you should come out and check out over a weekend, that's for absolute certain. If you're a photography buff or a videographer or anyone that's into doing a bit of filming, this is this place for you, that's for sure. There's just so many picturesque things around the town, especially this little drive here. I'll just head out to the edge of town and come back. But yeah, really, really cool. Check the light out as it goes across the creek and then through these trees with the bark on the trees, and it's just spectacular. One of the cool things about this trip and seeing how much this area hasn't changed, there's not many places you can go to now like this where this is still reasonably close to Melbourne and someone hasn't parked a bloody barista machine and, you know, there's 5 yuppies deep hanging out the door trying to get a coffee somewhere during the day. I went in for a coffee here at the general store and there was just the one lady there that had been living here for 40 years and there was there was definitely no barista coffees, and it was just as it used to be, which was quite impressive. You know, you just don't need all that stuff all the time. It's just nice to go to somewhere that's just different. And I don't say that being offensive, you know, or trying to be offensive. It's just, you know, really nice to go to somewhere where it's just not the same. And here we are at the Frenchman's Gap Track. This is on the Jamison-Lacola Road. It's right at the top of the range. You got German Spur and the old coach road on the other side, which are also good drives. But this track, it'll take you straight back over east, and which is where we're going to hook up on some of these really good tracks. And this is a good drive. Again, nice and scenic. There's one point here at the top of the track where you can just see out over all the ranges, which is quite good. When you're sitting on the Jamison-Lacola Road and you're looking over to the Frenchman's Gap Track, you'll see that there's 2 tracks. One goes down around the sort of the base of the hill and up, which is the one I followed, and then there's one that comes directly down from the power lines, which is really gnarly. It's got some rock shelves and all that, and that's a bit of a tester for anyone that wants to test their 4B with, you know, something with lockers and that sort of thing. Like all these tracks that I've travelled in this trip, and I'm about to travel in the next couple of videos, pretty much all of them have been upgraded over the last 3 or 4 years. But before that, they hadn't been touched for decades, and they were really worth driving because there's some really steep sections on this Eildon side of the high country. Unfortunately, that's just about it for this video. I've really enjoyed showing you down the Jamison Woods Point Road and some of the townships and settlements and out to Woods Point. But the video's about to finish just as it starts to get steep here out at Frenchman's. Definitely tune back in next time because there's some really good stuff coming up on this trip.